Hi, how's it going? Welcome to the channel, and I am here for an era review. So for this era review, I will be reviewing the 1990s era of Iron Maiden. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think that this is actually a pretty underrated era for Iron Maiden. I know there's a lot of people that generally stick with the 1980s stuff or even the modern era, the 2000s and 2010s era of Iron Maiden. And there's not really too many people that give much credit to 1990s Maiden. I know there's a lot of people that really just don't like this era at all. But I think that this era is actually pretty overlooked. There's a lot of underrated stuff to be found in this era. So, yeah. Now, my personal favorite era of Iron Maiden is the 1980s stuff, but I still think that the 1990s stuff is really good. My least favorite era is probably the modern era. I know that's rather unpopular, but I don't know, that era just never really did much for me. Now, there is some good stuff to be found in that era, I think, don't get me wrong, but to me it just lacks the most replay value, especially the 2010s era. So, yeah. So let's go ahead and get into 90s Maiden, and we, of course, got No Prayer for the Dying. Now, this album I think is actually kind of overlooked in a sense. It's actually kind of underrated. It's not one of Maiden's best by any means, but I think it's a decent album. It's got tracks like Tail Gunner, which is an interesting opening track. I really like the guitar work. Now, some of the vocal choices that Bruce makes in this song are kind of questionable, I guess, but it is what it is. Holy Smoke is a song that I know some people don't like, but I personally think it's pretty good. I don't think it's a song that is taking itself too seriously, so yeah, I think it's actually kind of a fun song to listen to. The title track is kind of interesting as well. I think it's got some really good guitar work going for it. And I think The Assassin and Run Silent, Run Deep are actually pretty underrated songs by Iron Maiden, so yeah. No Prayer for the Dying, again, it's nowhere near one of Iron Maiden's best, but I think it's a pretty decent album. So yeah, I think I'll give these albums a score as I go through them. So No Prayer for the Dying, I'll go ahead and give it... I'll give it like a light 7 out of 10. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and give it that. So, yeah, I think it's a decent album. Next up, we got, of course, Fear of the Dark. This is the last album to feature Bruce on vocals for a little bit. Now, this is probably my favorite album in Iron Maiden's 90s time. And I think a lot of people can agree with that. I know there's a lot of people that do say that this is the best of Iron Maiden's 90s work. I really like Be Quicker Be Dead. It's one of the most energetic tracks on the album. Again, it's just kind of like a fun song to listen to, I think. Afraid to Shoot Strangers, I think, is a really unique song. It's one of Iron Maiden's most unique songs. It's very dark sounding, it's kind of atmospheric, and I really dig the song structure to it overall. I think it's just a really unique Iron Maiden track. Childhood's End, I think, is actually pretty underrated. This one also is kind of atmospheric, especially towards the first half of the song. I think it's really good. Wasting Love is, of course, one of the singles to this album, and I think it's a great song, of course. This is a song that also has a lot of calmness to it, but also has some higher energy, a lot of higher points as far as energy goes. So yeah, I think it's a great song as well. Chains of Misery, I think, is a really catchy Iron Maiden song. This is a song that I always thought was pretty underrated. Now, I of course like the title track as well, Fear of the Dark. It's definitely one of Iron Maiden's best title tracks. So yeah, Fear of the Dark, it's a great album. I'll go ahead and give it an 8.5 out of 10. So next up, we of course got the first album with Blaze on vocals, kind of like the substitute for Iron Maiden for a little bit. Now we of course got The X Factor. Now I think this album is actually kind of underrated, but yeah, this is one of Maiden's darkest albums. Maybe it is their darkest album. I really like the atmosphere that this delivers. Sign of the Cross is a great opening track. It's got a really dark vibe to it, I think, and it's got a really unique song structure. Lord of the Flies is, of course, really good. Man on the Edge is one of the catchiest songs on the album. Judgment of Heaven, this song is really underrated. It's definitely one of the best songs on the X Factor. I just really like the guitar work and Blaze's vocal delivery. I think that this song features some of Blaze's best vocal delivery with Iron Maiden. Now, 2 AM and The Unbeliever are really good closing tracks, I think, especially The Unbeliever, which I think has some really some catchiness to it, which I really like. So yeah, The X Factor, it's a really good album, underrated. As far as the score goes, I'll go ahead and give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's actually a really good album. So yeah, next up, of course, and lastly, we got the second album with Blaze and the last album with Blaze before Bruce came back for the 2000s era of Iron Maiden. We, of course, got Virtual 11. This is without a doubt one of Iron Maiden's weakest albums, but not bad, though. I think it's still pretty good. One thing I've noticed about Virtual 11 in comparison to the X Factor is Virtual 11 has a more positive tone to it. Like, I feel like it has a lighter vibe to it. It's not as dark as the X Factor, and I think that's one of the unique things about this album, actually, because 90's Maiden is pretty dark compared to, you know, the stuff that they've released prior, for example. So yeah, I think this was kind of like that first step into that positive tone that you would get with the upcoming albums like Brave New World. So yeah, but Virtual 11, while one of Maiden's weakest albums, it's got some good stuff on it. I really like Future Real. It's a really good opening track. Lightning Strikes Twice is a song that I actually really like. I think it's got some really unique instrumentation. Same could be said about The Klansman. The Klansman is one of Blaze Bayley's best songs with Iron Maiden, I think. His vocal performance is really good in that song, and I, of course, really like the guitar work. I think everyone does a good job with that song. But, of course, we can't pass this album up without talking about The Angel and the Gambler, which is easily Iron Maiden's worst song ever. That's without a doubt, of course. It's too long, it's too repetitive, and it's just very cringeworthy. Yeah, this album does have some solid stuff on it, but it also has some skippable tracks as well. So, yeah, definitely not one of Maiden's best works. So, Virtual 11, I'll go ahead and give it either a 6.7 or a light 7 out of 10. But, yeah, it's kind of like in between those two. I'm not really sure what to give it. But, yeah, Virtual 11, I think it's a decent album. So, there you go, guys. That is my take on the 90s era of Iron Maiden. Let me know what you guys think. What is your favorite album by Iron Maiden that came out during this time period? Feel free to let me know your thoughts on this era of Iron Maiden and all that good stuff. So, yeah. With that being said, let me know what you guys think of my review for this era of Iron Maiden. I think this era was pretty good, actually. I think there's a lot of overlooked stuff in this era, so with all that being said, let me know your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. Have a nice day. Take care.